We'd like to welcome to our studios here at Calabash TV, Mr. Naham Baptiste, who's a songwriter who's made his mark in calypso, and you're also into folk drumming, and there's so many other things that you're involved with as well.
Yes.
How are you doing?
I'm fine.
All right, so we want to have a little chat on the creative industries. We'll focus a little bit, obviously, on the areas that you're actively involved with, but we know you're somebody who has followed the, the developments in St. Lucia, and also not just followed, but in a critical way, looking at the developmental side of the creative industries and how we ought to develop and so on. But before that, let me start with calypso. So you haven't been, T.C. Brown released a song.
Yeah.
Yesterday, I think.
Yes.
You heard it?
I heard it.
What was your thought on it?
Yeah. I think it's a good song. Let me put it that way. You know, I think the music in it is obviously, I think very, very good music, very, very, very good lyrics. But to me, you see, the thing about calypso is that the interaction between the crowd, and that's why, yes, I am all for the virtual and the technology, but a very important part of the calypso is that interaction between the crowd, the tent, whether it's the tent or whether it's at the finals or semi-finals, and the artists. And that is woefully missing. I look at the Trinidad ones, I've looked at the ones in Trinidad, for example, both the soca and some of the calypsos, and even looking on TV. And it's just something that's missing the reality of that close interaction between the crowd or the audience and the calypsonian. Yeah, but good work, and I really want to commend the guys who during this pandemic has been really trying to remain relevant and remain creative, you know. But it's a tough job. It's a tough job because I'm sure not many of them getting any kind of incentives, and that is an aspect of the thing that we have to look at. We have neglected it for many years, and we ought to start looking at it now if we have to go forward in terms of an industry. And I think that's one of the lessons that the COVID pandemic has taught us, that we now have to look at the business side of things as well as the creative side of things.
How did it feel for you? Because you know, there's a certain adrenaline you get when the calypso season is coming up and calypsonians are calling you, and you know there are things going on, and you see issues all over the place.
Yes.
Well, how frustrating was it for you that all this is happening around you and you're just like, you're
very, very, very frustrating. And to make things worse, it's an election year.
Yeah.
It's an election year, and that is the time where all the buzz around the calypso and a lot of the enthusiasm around the calypso. And we have to miss it, because of the pandemic. And it's 2 years. In effect, it's 2 years, and so I'm feeling a bit down, but I also had a time to reflect, and I think post-COVID, we have to, those of us in the creative industry, and I always like to speak specifically about calypso, because I think despite being if you want the oldest genre or the oldest type of music that we have been involved in, I believe it is the least developed in terms of looking at the business aspect and looking at some of the other things that you see around some of the other musical genres that we are kind of involved in.
I think whichever party wins the next election, they will have to give some serious concentration, some thought to the creative industries, and I agree with you in terms of the practitioners have to be proactive and not wait for politicians and a manifesto to tell you what they're going to do for you, but to basically, you live your industry, and so you must know where you want to go. And I think after this election, because even now it might be difficult to engage people, although they haven't put out their manifestos yet, but I think that there ought to be some serious concentration on where the creative industry is going.
I totally agree with you. And I think if I can point to one of the things, even in the absence of any of the studies, but when you look at creative industries in countries that are serious about creative industries, they have a goal, they have a mandate, they have put in institutional arrangements and structures, they have selected the industries that they're going to focus on, because there are many sub-industries under the creative. I mean, you can focus on 4 or 5 during the first 5 years, and then do a good program around that, so that you can create an environment. You see, what we're missing in this country and in some of our countries in the region, creatives, because of the politics and several other issues, but mainly politics, creative people are not really involved in the economic process. So we have to try to find a way to include them, create an environment where they will participate, where they can participate, they can, because creative people are not in our side of the world, are not rich, generally rich people, but however, they still create every year. So we have to, I think our economic planners and the persons responsible for the ministries and the policies, our economic policies, need to be creative themselves, you know, and think outside of the box of the general. For example, we see that the sectors that the traditional sectors that they concentrate on, COVID turned that upside down. But if you want to, but we see it did not really happen, even if the creative industries were not making money for us. We see that people are still being creative. So I think we should think along the lines of creating an environment within which creative people could participate. I leave that up to how we do it. I leave these strategies up to our economic thinkers and so. But we have to start thinking outside of the box, outside of the agricultural box, the tourism box, the services box, and start to bring in culture in a big way, in a way, and for any budding industry, you have to do some kind of subsidies, you have to do some kind of training, we have to bring in the business aspect of those creative industries so that we can get a chance to not only develop our capacity, but maybe to export, because it's very difficult for an individual or even a company to export creative industries if we don't try to engender in it in a way that we can sell it out there. We need to know about the business principles around it. We need to know about the exporting principles around it. And so I think that's where I think that successive governments have kind of failed the industry in that regard.
I mean, you just have to look at our cultural center, and you can tell that there's been almost total neglect of the creative industry, because that's our maker.
Right. If you want to use that as a symbol for, I mean, you know, for us, especially for us here around Castle, and even when you go down the coast, it's even worse.
There's nothing there.
It's even worse. And let's just look at calypso. Let's make calypso an example. We have the South End have to come down in Castries to be. Yes, we may make the argument about population distribution and that type of thing, but interests, you know, involving the creatives in the economic process, in the economic industry. I think if we have to be competitive in the world, we need in the whole economic sphere, we need to bring in creative people as well, you know, into the fray.
It was quite ironic, and I mentioned the cultural center, that some time ago, I mean, during the cruise ship season, almost every day there's a cruise ship in the harbor, and the cruise ship has a theater that's world class, way above what we have. And it's an
Tell me about it.
And we're not performing there.
Tell me.
And right next door, over the hill overlooking the cruise ship, is our best effort at an avenue for us to showcase our talent.
Exactly.
And I was just thinking about it. Can you imagine that this cruise ship has a facility in their theater with proper sound, proper lighting?
Yes.
That's way superior to what we have, and it's overlooking the cruise ships, and so that's an indication of where we're at.
Yes, yes.
Even because we like to talk about physical development, infrastructure. So even in infrastructure, we don't have that.
Exactly. And it's not fair, you know, because a lot of people put a lot of blame on the artists. It's not fair to put all that blame on the artists, and you don't. For example, you don't give them the incentives. You don't even create the environment for them to create. You leave everything totally up to them. But yet still they must come up with the best songs, the best this, and then people criticize, you know, and then now they stop, and then during the season start again. You know, we're not going to develop like that. You know, we have to try to develop the skills that we need. We have to try to get people thinking business along the line of business, because it is an industry. And I don't think that people can do that on their own. I think we need policy, we need government support, we need private sector support in that regard. And even to speak about the cruise ship thing, so why can't we have, even on this, when the cruise ships come in, we have some kind of organized groups of people playing there, something sponsored, if not by the government, but by the private sector, so that you ensure two things. You ensure that you get employment, right, for persons in the creative industry, but you also maybe creating an avenue for marketing, for the export part of it, because you're now going to showcase your talent to all of your visitors.
Maybe there can be a lunchtime concert, or
something,
lunchtime
yes,
performance or something.
Something.
Even if it's 20 minutes, but at least it's 20 minutes.
Exactly, exactly, and it shouldn't be left. It shouldn't be left up to the volition of the ships, or to the volition of whoever is making the money there. It should be seen as something to bring the creative industries forward, because we have a lot of talent. And I hear of the youth economy, and that is one of the areas where the youth, I think, if we have to develop even a youth economy, I think creatives should be a significant part of it. And then you have to create the enabling environment so that creatives can create within it. And then even assist you they will find creative ways to assist you in all of your problems, your economic problems, and so on. The COVID-19 also showed me that, look at how music, look at how all of these ads on COVID have some kind of musical something in it. This just gives you examples of how I think if we think outside of the box, to include the creatives in our economic development and in our economic strategies, I think we'll be in a much better place, and will not be too dependent on just the tourism or the agriculture or the services or whichever the sector that we're talking about.
It's certainly something we will expand on this program, and part of our objective is to expand a lot more on the creative industry and what exactly it is supposed to be and what it can do, because it will check all the boxes when it comes to everything that an industry is supposed to do.
Right.
Job creation, it generates revenue, it's marketing, or whatever we were looking at, it's there, building self-esteem and so on.
Right.
And since we were talking about the cruise ship, just overlooking the cruise ship again is the Senator School of Music, which is terribly funded.
All of these things, all of these, somebody or some government needs to bring all these pieces together. There's a lot of, and I'm not suggesting that you take the whole thing. You can choose 3 or 4 or 5 main sub-industries of the creative industries, and then put significant support behind it, so that at the end of the day, people will develop skills. People will now have an opportunity to do something creative, get something out of it, but at the same time have developed their own skills, and at the same time some of the broader outcomes that you get from create, like social interaction and all of the things that creatives try to get people to feel and understand. We would have all of those, and this is one of the things this has been my greatest disappointment in terms of successive governments, and that is failing to have a serious, a well-defined creative industry. You have to have the policies there. You must have the strategic plan there. And in that plan, all of the actors supposed to be participating in it. They're supposed to know that it's happening. They're supposed to help you define it and then help you to go forward. After all, it's creative people that's there. Yeah.
And in terms of the investment as well, because there isn't any significant investment in the development of the creative industry.
Exactly. It's left up to so you want calypso, a lot of people see it as, all right, you're going to make a money, so you leave it totally up to the skills that I have. But why not now teach other people, or create an environment where other people can teach and learn, put in the business, because we have to put in the business part of it, and also the export development part of it, because here we have people in the diaspora. By now we should have CDs, and it should not be left up to the local individual artists to do it. There should be something, something that gives them some kind of incentive to do it, some even rebates on something. You know, I'm not an economist, but I can think of there are certain things that you can do to assist the artists to help you build the industry. But one of the first things that we have to do is to put in these all of these institutions and things in place. So we must have a policy a mandate, you understand, to develop that industry and take it forward, and don't just have it as if you want an appendix or an appendment to another ministry, traditional ministry that we have. You know, we have to give it serious thought, because if not, we're going to be always where we are there. You know, another epidemic come, another pandemic come, right? The tourism industry may be going for a while, and then another epidemic, and then we have to go back to square one. You know, we have to go back to square one, and I am hoping, you know, that post this election that we can get something serious in the creative industries.
You think it has to be more than just a statement in a manifesto?
Yes, yes.
Policy was last, I guess, reviewed in 2013, which is a few years back. There's so much that has happened since then in terms of the creative industries. We have new media, we have gaming, we have app development. There's so many other areas that fall
That's what I'm saying.
Industries. So we need to do some serious rethinking to our policies.
But another question. I mean, there is a policy. Now, first of all, I don't know if it's documented, but even if it's documented, even if it is documented, are we implementing the policy? That's the other question. And then now government change, and will government adhere or continue to implement this? I want to posit that any government that comes in place and puts some creative, something in the creative industries that the artists themselves or the creatives themselves would appreciate and have a participation in. Whether the other government that comes in wants to change it, or you're going to have advocacy, serious advocacy on the part of the creatives in the creative industry to ensure that the government, if not implement most of it, parts of it, you understand, are going to be beneficial to them. So I don't think it's a total waste of time or to invest in the creative industry and get our young people, get our creative people thinking and contributing significantly to the economy.
I think our policymakers understand the value of the creative industries, because when there is a need for it, they do invest.
Oh,
they do invest
tell me about it.
For marketing purposes. We've seen how much effort was made to make sure that we had a jazz festival that was number one.
Yes.
We were all happy as solutions to have a jazz festival that was number one, and there was no excuse to invest in it.
Exactly.
But we know there's been some effort to start injecting some in Carnival, but it's almost like token.
Right.
In terms of, you know, so in revenue, because there was also always a question of revenue. Where do we get the revenue for? But we know we can get creative when it comes to sourcing revenue. But somehow the creative industry is always second thought.
Yes, and sadly, I say sadly because it's a serious indictment on both parties / governments. You know, it's a very serious indictment, and it's not just a word. You don't just use a word. You know, you have hundreds of thousands. Well, I shouldn't say hundreds of thousands, but tens of thousands of people in that creative industry. You know, and it's a matter of identifying, harnessing, and then thinking of how to bring, you know, it takes some strategic thinking. Yes, because you have at least 13 or 14, maybe even more sub-industries under there, but target the ones, you know, that can give you, for example, low-hanging fruits, you know, and target the ones that can have the most impact in the shortest time in the economy. That's for the economists to do. But yeah, do something solid about the creative industries. You know, it's been too long. It's been much too long.
Yeah, what are your thoughts on the schools and starting off with investing in school programs, whether it be music programs, theater programs, or whatever it is that can be developed at the school level? What are your thoughts on getting some focus in that area?
Yes. But I think, yes, but that would be for the future too, eh? Mm-hmm. That would be for the future. Yes, definitely. I will never say, we always have to try to get things in terms of the future for sustainability. But I think the time for the creative products that we have being developed now needs to be harnessed. That needs to be harnessed. We need to find a way to package that properly, to export that properly, you know, and it will not happen overnight, you know, but we need to see a serious effort by our leaders, policymakers, in developing that creative industry. And we don't have to go too far, just Trinidad and Jamaica there, if you have to look at the creative industries, we wonder, well, why Trinidad? But Trinidad gets a lot of support for the creative industry. I'm not even looking in terms of money. I'm looking in terms of capacity building, and training, and that is the way the world is going, because we have to be more competitive. You cannot be doing the same mundane things all the time and then expect to get a change. You expect to be competitive. You have to be creative for you to be competitive. And so I think now is the time. The time is now to engender that environment, and then so that even the young people in the schools can say, oh, but maybe I can go there. Maybe I can make this a career. And they have examples. Most of the people that make it here had to take their own effort and go forward with it. I think it's time we have to create that environment. Create that environment so that the creative industries can start to blossom. Carnival once a year, calypso once a year. Yeah, it's all right. You get good songs coming and things, but it's not harnessed. It's not, and you cannot look at continuity in that kind of way. You cannot leave it totally up to, for example, cricket. You cannot just look it up to expect to have skillful cricket. You don't get the best batsman, the best bowler. You have to build capacity. You have to build capacity, and it's not something that I see that the government alone. I see both our private sector, and because they're using the creative industries too. I mean, how many ads? How many ads? They always, all of the transportation, the advertising, all of these things, and I think that to be fair, if we need to develop, and we need to be in a sustainable way, yes, we have to think about the young people, always think about the young people, but that's the future. But we have to create the platform now. You understand? Now. Whoever it is that's there now doing something, harness them, give them the skills, the business skills, the whatever it is they need to develop the thing, give them the different incentives, and then I think we will be in a much better place.
You mentioned cricket, and it was a little embarrassing for me to have St. Lucia's hosting West Indies and South Africa.
Boy.
And there are no celebrations on the team, or anywhere close to. I mean, I know there's Kimani and a few other players that, knocking on the doors and so on. And then there's the St. Lucia Stars now. I'm almost sure there are no St. Lucians on it. I'll double check. But when I last checked, there weren't any St. Lucians on the St. Lucia Stars. And that's an indictment on both policymakers and also the organizers of the sport as well. Because if you have that kind of a showcase and the possibilities for economics and also for marketing purposes and so on, that there ought to be a program where you basically groom players. Yes. We built a stadium, but we didn't have a plan to develop cricketers.
But that's what I'm talking about. And that is an example. And I mean, I don't mean to be ironic, but I didn't even know about it when I saw it on TV. You understand what I'm saying? Something like that. When I saw, I know, yes, it's COVID. COVID is now the universal excuse. But yeah, so it shows me that there is no cohesion. There is no cohesion. There is no thinking in terms of no global thinking, no strategic thinking. And we cannot continue to be a nation of just doing activities, just little activities, do a little activity there toward no goal. And that's what I think is happening in the creative industries. Just a set of people doing some activities, but there is no plan, there is no goal. You understand? There's no structure to say, well, all right, this is what's beyond the forest. So all we see is just the trees, we're hustling around the trees, but we don't know where we're going beyond the forest. And I really feel passionate about that, and I think that creatives has not been given a good deal. And if you have to speak to artists, a calypsonian, for example, it's very, very, very hard on a calypsonian. Sometimes you do the season. They have calypsonians that do the season, and every season, and they lose every season,
And it's a national event.
Yeah, and they're there every year. They're there every year, and then people say, "Oh, you're not recording your songs, and you're not creating the songs, and you're not." But then now, there is no. So you create the songs, you do the competition, and that's the end of the songs. It shouldn't be like that. You know, and we lose a lot of songs. We lose a lot of good songs in that in that type of thing. Why couldn't there be somewhere they can be stored, they can be recorded? We have and it's very expensive. You cannot leave that to the individuals to do, to the individual creators to do. For those who survive, you know, they have no choice but to do it, and they suffer as a result. You know, but where is the support for them? Where is the, and I'm talking about ongoing, continuous support, not ad hoc. You know, not ad hoc after you win election or after you move on with your life and then you just leave them there in the same quagmire that they are all the time. You know?
We need to look at as well the fraternity itself, and it needs to take itself serious as well. Because we know that the government has a responsibility. Because the governments are developing and building infrastructure and everything else, and there's a human infrastructure that they need to focus on as well, and the creative aspect of the people. But also the fraternity itself needs to come together to start mobilizing. And I know there have been a few attempts here and there to get things going, but it seems that is a challenge for us.
It is a challenge, and yes, I'm going to blame the fraternity. You know, I have my own views with respect to the fraternity. Because one of the things that you see happening in the calypso fraternity, for example, is that people who don't bring anything to the calypso table have key decisions, can make key decisions about calypso, about the rewards of calypso. And they have nothing really to do. They make no contribution. They don't sing, they don't write, they don't manage, they don't do anything. You understand? So that's another thing that we have to issue, whether or not one of the reasons that we don't see anything happening in terms of the fraternity you're talking about there is that we have square pegs in wrong holes or wrong pegs in square holes. You understand? It's something, but having said that, I think because, all right, what are they going to do it for? They're going to have the creative and then get ready for council and then now go to advocate and then fight with people like the government, people in the government, not like the government, people in the government, whichever government. I have to be very, very careful because of you know. But what I want to try to what I'm attempting to do here is to give an approach. Let's give it like a more planning approach, because when you have a plan, you start with a goal. You don't start with the activities that you have down there. You start with your goal. And then within your goal, after your goal, you have your objectives, and then you have your strategies. And so they are all what you're doing in that plan is to try to achieve the goal. Right? But we don't have the goal. That is so even if you have your fraternity, you start it. What are they going to achieve? They don't, because they will have their own direction, but is that consistent with the direction that the government or the private sector wants to go? Or even some of the other fraternities that already exist want to go? You see, so it's bigger than just a little industry, an area. We have to think of it as a ministry. And that's where, because the way the government is structured, you have a ministry, so you're supposed to have a goal there to control a particular industry. And that's where we have to start. Because if not, we're just going to have ad hoc planning all the time. Carnival is a national event, and we know it have calypso and everybody have to come in line with whatever goals that we set out that we want to achieve for Carnival, period. And then we take another one and we take it that way. So I think, yes, you know, and but I think the absence of a blueprint, a goal, a direction for the creative industries is one of the reasons that we keep going back and spinning the top in the mud all the time, you know. But I think we have to take it seriously and then move forward with it. And I think this also is a good advocacy issue for us in the creative industry. We have to try and have the governments or the government thinking along those lines, the private sector as well, you know, and so we have had even, and when you look at something like sponsorship, for example, sponsorship depends on, boy, we look at tent, you have some tents sponsored, others not sponsored. You know, all of these things should be coordinated in a way that can help the industry develop and grow.
Yeah, obviously we'll have to have a continued conversation with you. And like I mentioned earlier, we want to start a series of conversations on the creative industries with the purpose of influencing. Now, I'm not so much interested in the manifestos, but influencing the policies that will direct where the industry goes. And certainly we want to count on you with your vast experience and knowledge of the sector for you to get involved in it. So we will certainly want to engage you again, but we want to thank you for your time. And we know there's so much more we have to discuss, a pretty long list of other issues there, but we have a time constraint. So we certainly we'll call you back in here for us to continue our conversations on the creative industries. But in the meantime, we want the fraternity, not just Calypso, but in the entire creative industries, to start thinking seriously of, like you mentioned, what is the goal are you thinking of, where you want to go, and how do you develop to achieve that goal. And also we want to start influencing the policymakers within both parties. I'm trying to have conversations with both of them to find out where their heads at in terms of what your thinking is for the creative industries. Because you're right, the way the creative industry is seen now is just like events management. We just put on an event.
Exactly. Exactly.
And it's a very successful event, and that's it. We forget
Exactly. Exactly.
the development part of it.
You have it. You have it. That's how I feel about it. You know, and I think that's what it is. You know, because if you go to the creative industry and you ask them, okay, well, show me what's your strategy, what's your plan for 1 year? All right, for 1 year. Events, I mean, is left up to the volition of individuals, you know, so you don't start with a goal. When you're doing things like that, you don't start with a goal. And I would really like to see advocacy from us in the creative industry to not demand, but to ask the government to put creative industry as a priority. And we want a ministry, a real ministry that they have plans for us and that we could participate in.
And resource.
And resource. It has to be well resourced. It has to be. It has to be well resourced. Exactly. You know, and I am willing. You know, I'm in whatever way that I can contribute, you know, toward that. But I think the time is long overdue for us to have something constructive like that.
Just to wrap up, I'm thinking of, you know, I'm putting you on the spot technically. I know you're songwriter, so you always have ideas running. But even when you see, you know, so many issues going on there, do some of the ideas that come in are funny on the humorous side? How much, or just serious issues that you see?
No. Well, one of the things that I've learned over the years, if you could take a serious issue and put a lot of wit and satire in it, you're a lot more successful. Successful from the point of view of you yourself. You know, you will enjoy writing that a lot more rather than crying after every line. You know, you would have enjoyed. So I have seen a lot of, there are serious issues. But I also think a lot of these, as serious as they are, you should always have a space, a point, a line where somebody can smile about it or somebody can laugh about it. But we woefully miss the calypso season because it was like a staple. You know, I used to be taking my leave around that time. You know?
Really?
So right now, you know, it's been 2 years as if, you know, dead and rusty. You know, you're kind of dead and rusty. But hopefully, hopefully, come elections and post-COVID, you know, we have to try and think a lot more serious and a lot more coordinated in terms of the creative industry.
And I really hope that a lot of us talk about post-COVID, that we make a serious change in direction, because it cannot be the status quo after COVID.
Exactly. We should learn. You know, we ought to learn. And I think when I say we, I mean everybody, specifically the economic sector, because I think economics get the most licks in that COVID thing. People lost their jobs and so on, specifically. And so we have to think in terms of recalibrating or redesigning our economy. And that's where I would like to make the case for the creative industries. The creative industries. Get creatives involved in the economy. That's what I'm saying, in a big way. You know, and I'm sure we'll be able to solve most of the problems. Not all, but we'll have creative ways of solving the problem.
Baptiste, I'm happy that you gave us the time to be here.
No problem.
Like I said, we will speak with you again, and all the best.
Yeah, it's been my pleasure. Thank you.